I think it is clear to believe in the power of ideas.
Fresh thinking to the Manhattan Institute.
Well, thank you, Howard, for that generous introduction, and thank you to the Manhattan Institute for organizing this conference about a subject which we all care about and is so timely. I think those of us who work in the infrastructure area recognize that we have reached an impasse. That on the one hand, there are lots of experts and studies that suggest that we should be spending more on infrastructure than we are now. Maybe not as much as the American Society for Civil Engineers argues we should spend, but more. And on the other hand, we have a real problem in that the public is unwilling to support the increased gas taxes or tolls or other financial measures that would be necessary to support that kind of funding. Sorry. Most of us who have worked on this think there are two reasons for this impasse. One of them is that we lack a really compelling vision about what this infrastructure is going to be used for. From the 50s through the 70s, we had as that vision the construction of the Federal Interstate and Defense Highway System Act. And since then, we've been struggling to define a federal role in particular and an infrastructure need of that kind of magnitude that would compel that kind of effort. But I think the second problem is that our infrastructure programs have lost a lot of their political legitimacy, in part because both the transit and the highway programs are so heavily earmarked. People may remember the bridge in Minnesota that collapsed as emblematic of our need to construct more highways and bridges, or to maintain the ones that we have. But they also remember, and perhaps even more, the bridge to nowhere in Alaska. And I think there's a strong feeling among the public that if we get more money for infrastructure, that it won't be used wisely. In that context, there have been a lot of efforts at reform. This commission that New York State is going to have is only the latest of several state and national commissions to look at infrastructure, and much wringing of hands. And one of the most interesting efforts at reform is something you're going to hear about at lunchtime, Secretary Peters' 3Rs program, which is really aimed straight at the problems of lack of vision and lack of legitimacy or lack of trust. One of her R's, for example, is refocus, where she proposes to get rid of the hodgepodge of almost 100 highway programs that have developed within the federal highway system, and replace them with a couple with more compelling national interests. But the issue I really want to talk about today is the role of public-private partnerships in potentially helping us with this infrastructure backlog that we have. And Secretary Peters and others are very hopeful that PPPs will be part of the solution, will really help. I think there are several promises that they hope, or hopes that they, stumbling over my words, several things they hope it will achieve. One of them is the ability to tap private capital markets, pension funds and others that are looking for long-term and stable investments like infrastructure. But the second and more important is the hope that private participation will improve the quality and efficiency of the projects that we have, and thus shore up the political legitimacy. And I think these efforts have been encouraged by a number of projects that you're going to hear about this morning from people who have been involved directly in them. We often distinguish in this road business between two types of projects, greenfield and brownfield, where greenfield projects are where you start from scratch, and a brownfield is take an existing road and improve and maintain it. And the greenfield are widely recognized as having more upside potential, but also more risky because they involve traffic risk and private